Imagine walking into a courtroom expecting a routine legal battle, and walking out witnessing history. One congresswoman stands alone, armed not with power, but with preparation, intellect, and undeniable evidence. She faces a judge known for her authority, her composure, her reputation. What happens next shakes the foundations of the American judiciary, and the world can't stop watching. This is the story of Jasmine Crockett's courtroom masterstroke, a legal takedown so precise, so unprecedented, that it redefines what accountability means on the bench. The heavy wooden doors creaked open, and the courtroom buzzed with anticipation as journalists scribbled notes, cameras clicked, and spectators leaned forward, hungry for drama. This wasn't just another hearing. This was a political battlefield disguised as a legal proceeding. At the center of it all sat Rudy Giuliani, jaw clenched, eyes darting between the judge and the crowd. A man fighting to protect not only his reputation, but his very legacy. Across the room, Jasmine Crockett entered with an aura of unshakable confidence, her posture straight, gaze steady, and presence impossible to ignore. Even before she spoke, whispers spread among the audience, signaling that this was more than a legal exchange. It was a duel of credibility, wit, and raw determination. The air was thick with tension, making even the judge clear his throat twice before beginning. Giuliani leaned forward at the witness stand, gripping its edge as though bracing against invisible waves, his voice ringing with practiced authority honed over decades. "This isn't justice," he declared, sharp enough to slice through murmurs. "This is political persecution. An orchestrated attack meant to silence me and anyone who dares to challenge the establishment." Gesturing emphatically, he painted himself as the victim of a corrupt machine, each word designed to stir sympathy and remind the room of his past triumphs. For a fleeting moment, it seemed to work as a few spectators nodded in quiet agreement, and Giuliani straightened his tie with a faint smirk, confident he still commanded attention. But across the aisle, Crockett remained unmoved, calm, composed, and silent, a warning that his bravado, though loud, would soon crumble under the weight of truth. The stage was set. Giuliani had thrown his first punch, but the real battle was only just beginning. The room grew still as Jasmine Crockett finally rose from her seat, moving with deliberate, measured precision, every gesture almost theatrical, commanding the atmosphere before a single word left her lips. Her heels clicked softly against the marble floor as she approached the podium, paused to adjust her notes, and fixed her gaze on Giuliani. The silence was deafening, yet she seemed to thrive in it. When she spoke, her voice was low but steady, carrying a razor's edge of authority. "Mr. Giuliani," she began, smooth yet piercing, "you've spoken much about persecution. But today, this courtroom isn't about your feelings, it's about facts. And facts, unlike emotions, do not bend to theatrics." The crowd stirred, riveted by her every word, as Giuliani's smirk faltered and his fingers tightened on the stand. Her introduction wasn't an attack. It was a warning shot, signaling that she was there not to spar with rhetoric, but to dismantle his defense piece by piece. The air between them crackled like a live wire as Giuliani leaned in, voice booming, doubling down. "You can dress this up however you like, Congresswoman, but this is nothing more than a witch hunt. I've served this country for decades. I've put mob bosses behind bars. And now I'm the target? Think about that." His words burned with anger and pride, framing himself as a warrior betrayed by the very system he defended. But Crockett remained unyielding, lifting her gaze and striking back with the force of unshakable reason. "History doesn't erase accountability, Mr. Giuliani. Past service doesn't grant immunity for present choices. You invoke your legacy, but today, we're here to address the truth. And the truth doesn't care about the titles you once held." The contrast was stark. Giuliani's narrative fueled by emotion, Crockett's radiating precision and logic. What began as a courtroom hearing had transformed into a war of storytelling, each vying to sway not only the judge but the hearts of everyone watching. A duel of fire against steel, with only one destined to endure. Giuliani wasn't the type to retreat. The flicker of doubt in his eyes hardened quickly into defiance as he straightened, hands gripping the podium like a man determined not to be swept under by the tide. "You talk about truth, Congresswoman," he snapped, voice cutting through the chamber. "But where was your so-called truth when corruption ran rampant in Washington? Where was your voice when real crimes were ignored? Don't stand there pretending you're the savior of justice. You're nothing more than a political opportunist." Gasps rippled across the gallery as Giuliani shifted from defending himself to attacking her personally. A bold gamble painting Crockett not as a seeker of truth, but as a player in the very political theater she accused him of staging. Crockett didn't flinch. She didn't even blink. Her stillness made Giuliani's fury look wilder, more uncontrolled, his passion frantic against her unshakable calm. Yet he pressed on, pounding the podium. "This isn't justice, it's revenge, and I won't be the scapegoat for your political games." His voice momentarily drowned out everything, but beneath the noise, the crowd sensed a shift. His counterattack, though fiery, was desperate, and desperation in a courtroom can be deadly. The storm of Giuliani's words echoed, but Crockett remained composed, hands resting lightly on the podium, eyes locked on him with a calm authority more devastating than any outburst. Finally, her voice cut through, steady and sharp as glass. "Mr. Giuliani, shouting doesn't turn falsehood into truth. Accusations don't erase evidence. And personal attacks don't shield you from accountability." The courtroom fell silent, each syllable sliced like a scalpel. His fire met her ice, controlled, chilling, unshakable. Leaning forward slightly, she intensified. "You say this is revenge. No, this is justice. You call me an opportunist. I call you what the evidence shows. A man who abused his position. A man who thought he could twist the law for his own benefit. And today, that ends." The audience stirred, their earlier uncertainty dissolving into murmurs of agreement. Across the room, Giuliani's face flushed. His attack had failed to rattle her. Instead, it had sharpened her blade. The duel had transcended law. It was now a battle for who could command the truth. And in that moment, Crockett held the ground. The chamber seemed to hold its breath as Crockett's words lingered like a verdict already delivered. Giuliani shifted, knuckles whitening around the podium, as if gripping it could anchor him against the tide rising against him. The judge leaned back, eyes narrowing. He hadn't spoken, but his silence weighed heavily, listening, measuring, and signaling that the balance of power had shifted. Giuliani's fiery theatrics had sparked attention, but Crockett's steady precision ignited conviction. Spectators leaned forward, whispering, sensing the energy shift. Those who had once flinched at Giuliani now found themselves nodding almost unconsciously at Crockett's clarity. Then came the moment. She lifted a thick folder from the desk, opened it with deliberate care, and held a single document high enough for all to see. "This isn't about politics. It's about proof," she said evenly, and the words struck like a hammer. Giuliani froze, the crowd fell silent, and even the judge leaned forward, eyes fixed on the document. Crockett's hands didn't tremble as she revealed a meticulously organized series of memos, emails, and transcripts, each thread threatening to unravel Giuliani's narrative. "Your Honor," she began calmly, "this is the record of communications between the defendant and multiple political operatives, detailing instructions that contradict sworn testimony in this very case." She paused, letting the weight settle. Giuliani went pale, mouth opening and closing like a gasping fish. Flipping to the first page, she read aloud with deliberate precision. The words seemed ordinary, but their implications were devastating, exposing contradictions, hidden agendas, and attempts to influence judicial processes. Like a master chess player, she laid out the evidence. Every piece strategically placed, every fact undeniable. The courtroom's energy shifted. Lawyers scribbled frantically, Reporters held their breath, and spectators leaned in, witnessing a legal spectacle unspooling. Giuliani tried to interject, voice rising, but Crockett didn't flinch. "This is not conjecture," she continued steadily. "This is documented proof. Every claim you have made in this courtroom can now be verified against these communications. And every discrepancy raises serious questions about credibility, intent, and legality." The judge cleared his throat, but she held up a hand, fully in control. "I submit these documents for the record. Let them speak for themselves." A tense pause followed, and then, almost imperceptibly, the room exhaled together. The evidence had spoken. Giuliani's confident facade crumbled into desperation, while Crockett's calm authority had transformed a courtroom battle into a methodical, unstoppable unveiling of truth. The judge's gavel, once a symbol of unchallenged authority, now felt like a fragile shield in a storm. Crockett's presentation of evidence had shifted the balance of power, and the judge could feel it with every page she produced, every carefully chosen phrase chipping away at the perception of impartiality that had been the cornerstone of the bench. The courtroom held its collective breath as he leaned forward, peering through glasses that seemed suddenly inadequate, lips moving silently, struggling to formulate a response to her methodical unraveling of the case. Even the court clerk and bailiffs, usually confident, were subdued, eyes darting nervously between the judge and Crockett. She met the judge's gaze with unwavering intensity. "Your Honor, the evidence clearly indicates discrepancies in testimony and documented communication. It raises questions not only about credibility, but potential misconduct that could compromise the integrity of this court." Murmurs rippled through the gallery. Lawyers jotted frantically, reporters held their breath, and even spectators sensed the rare moment of judicial vulnerability. The judge cleared his throat, hesitated, then tried to reassert authority with a trembling gavel, but the courtroom had shifted. Crockett had seized the narrative entirely. Outside, whispers circulated, phones recorded every gesture, every reaction. Inside, the judge's commanding presence had been replaced by visible tension, an uncertainty louder than words. Yet Crockett wasn't finished. She reached into her briefcase and produced a thick folder, the culmination of months of preparation. "Your Honor," she began, calm yet commanding, "what I am about to present is the culmination of constitutional principles applied without fear or favor." She laid a comparative analysis of precedent cases on the bench, meticulously cross-referenced, leaving no room for doubt. The gallery watched, rapt, as she produced authenticated transcripts of private judicial discussions, revealing attempts to influence rulings. A gasp swept through the room. Leaning forward, she met the judge's eyes. "This is not a personal attack. It is a testament to the law itself. Judicial authority exists not to advance convenience or ideology, but to serve justice. When a judge strays from that path, accountability is imperative." Every word struck with precision. The judge's composure began to crack. Her final flourish, a document authored with renowned constitutional scholars advocating judicial integrity, she held high, declaring, "This is what it means to respect the Constitution, to respect justice, and to respect the American people. Anything less is a failure of the highest order." The room erupted, not in chaos, but in stunned recognition. Crockett had not only defended her position, she had redefined the courtroom, seizing control of the narrative, exposing judicial vulnerability, and elevating the law itself above all else.